Hey there, YouTube. I'm Jack, and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me again today. As you can see, I've got Amanda with us here again. She's getting to where she likes these videos. Easier to talk her into doing them, or she's actually eager to do them. And we were going over a list of some topics today, and she's actually got a lot of good topics. And I think, could you say we'll probably have a video out of you in the next couple of weeks? Or maybe this week.
This week.
Oh, good, yeah. Good. All right, I'll keep you guys informed. As soon as she's got one up, I will let you know. Anyhow, today the topic is, can a raw vegan diet cure anemia? Hey guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate if you go down and hit the subscribe button now, then click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. Yeah, we were just kind of brainstorming today and a lot of good topics came up, and I figured we might as well continue covering topics that are relevant and personal to you, because you also experienced anemia, and we'll get into all of this, but it was in relation to the Crohn's disease, so she's going to talk about all of that kind of stuff. But to begin with, like I say, she's given me a real education, because we were saying, like, the one disadvantage I have, which isn't a disadvantage, is I don't have any ailments or anything bothering me, but that I don't have particular knowledge in certain things because I haven't had to figure them out, whereas Amanda has. So we're going to cover even one of the most basic things here, just so I'm even sure exactly what anemia is. What is anemia?
So the disclaimer with every one of these kinds of videos: not a doctor, not a nutritionist. I'm not diagnosing you with anything. I am just sharing my story and the things that I've learned in that process, and even then there's always new information coming out, and there are things that I might get wrong sometimes because my memory is not perfect. But all of that said, anemia is essentially, the result of anemia is that you're not getting enough oxygen to the different parts of your body because your blood isn't carrying enough oxygen, and that can come from a different cause depending on the type of anemia that you have. There's a couple different types. If I had to guess, I would say maybe around 4 different types. So whatever is causing the anemia can affect essentially how that plays out. So in some cases it might be like the shape of your red blood cells. In other cases it might be, which was my case, lacking hemoglobin in your red blood cells to properly carry the oxygen throughout your body. So you either, and then I think there might be a situation where you don't have enough healthy red blood cells. So whatever is going on, the blood cells that you do have are not enough. They're not healthy enough. There's not enough of them. You're not carrying enough oxygen around your body.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And how would you know? What are the symptoms of this?
So, I mean, if you think about it, if you're not getting enough oxygen, the kinds of symptoms that come up with that. So you might feel dizzy and lightheaded. I know for me, I would, it sounds like I should have talked to a doctor a lot sooner, and that's accurate. I should have seen a doctor a lot sooner. But if I stood up, sometimes I would black out when I stood up. Like, my vision would go black. I wouldn't faint,
Right.
but my vision would go dark for a couple of seconds, which was really scary.
Right.
There are, like, you might notice that you're getting out of breath, or that you're just more tired all of the time. Also, kind of counterintuitive, but even though you're more tired all of the time, anemia can lead to insomnia, which I definitely had. So it can cause some trouble with sleep as well. So it kind of can impact everything, but those, I think, are some of the bigger signs that it might be worth at least just getting your blood work done. And I have told you I'm a big advocate of blood work, because it's a really non-invasive way to learn a lot about where your health is at that point.
Yeah, I think you've about talked me into that. How were you eating when you discovered you were anemic?
So at the time I was actually eating kind of paleo. I discovered I was anemic around the same time that the Crohn's situation started really escalating. So and this is what's actually, I think, counterintuitive for a lot of people, but I discovered I was anemic in, I think it would have been February of 2015. And then I went vegan. I can't remember if it was May or June, but it was one of those 2 months in 2015. So I was anemic before I was vegan. And I was severely anemic in February, which isn't surprising considering I was blacking out when I stood up. I was severely anemic while I was still eating meat. And honestly, a lot of meat, because most of my diet was just meat and vegetables.
Right.
So I was anemic before I ever even went vegan.
And that just blows the theory out of the water that what most people are always talking about, that it's the veganism that causes the anemia in people.
Yeah.
And it was the reverse, it was the opposite in you. So how did your journey kind of morph from there? Like, how did you, when you went vegan, were you eating anything special? Were there special things you needed to eat? Was there a certain way you ate?
Yeah. So when I went vegan, it had to do with the Crohn's situation. So I was trying to just not be in pain from eating. That was my number one goal when I went vegan, was let's see if we can just eat without being in pain. That would be great. So because of that, I really went the kind of, honestly, I discovered Freely and Durian Rider. They were a big part of me deciding to do that at the time, because Durian Rider had talked about colitis and stuff. And there were a few other people that I had found, but they felt more prominent. And there were some documentaries that I watched and some books that I read. So ultimately, it was kind of, I was sort of idealizing like the raw till 4 kind of style of eating, but it was also because I wasn't doing cooked when I first transitioned. It was very much fruitarian. I mean, it was solid fruitarian for a few weeks in the beginning. It could have been 2 weeks, or it could have been a little longer than that. And at that point, I did start adding green juice in, because I knew that it just seemed obvious to me that I would still need that to some degree, because I had started that before going vegan. But I really wasn't, I didn't see any value in, or enough value. I didn't see enough value in vegetables. I didn't see enough value in protein and fat. And I still do eat, I do advocate a higher carb diet for sure. But we do need those other things. We just don't need a lot of them, but we need them.
Right.
Yeah. So when I was diagnosed with anemia first in February of 2015, that sort of had one cause. And then actually after going vegan, the symptoms of anemia went away, and I went for a period without blood work. So I can't say with 100% certainty if I was not anemic, but I didn't have any symptoms anymore. But then maybe like a year in, and especially 2 years in, I did get some blood work done. By 2 years in, I was anemic again, but it was for different reasons. So I think that previously with the Crohn's situation, I was losing a lot of blood. So there was that. And then also I was actually deficient in B12 despite eating meat. So I should have been supplementing with B12 as a non-vegan. And then going vegan, B12 was like this obvious thing that I needed to supplement with. So I was supplementing with that from day one. But because I didn't value some of the like fats, proteins, vegetables enough, I wasn't getting enough iron in my diet, or even the iron that I was getting due to the Crohn's situation, I wasn't properly absorbing and utilizing, but I didn't understand that at the time.
Right.
So if anything, I should have been having like way more green juice, or placing way more effort on some of those things than even the average vegan, because I have some struggles with absorbing and utilizing some of those things. Iron, zinc, and calcium are really the big three for me that I sort of have a little bit of trouble getting. Even when I have enough of it in my diet, absorbing it is sort of the next thing that I think just needs more time to heal. And maybe it'll never become perfect, but it's definitely a lot better than how things were before. And that's a good thing though, because you do absorb more iron from eating, for example, meat.
Right.
It's more absorbable, but you don't necessarily want that much iron, because there's a sweet spot with iron where you're not anemic, but also where you don't have so much excess iron that you're promoting cancer growth in your body. So it's a good thing to have plants that sort of help our bodies self-regulate how much of these minerals to be taking out of the food and the fuel that we're giving our body. The issue kind of comes in when you have a history of digestive issues and it's messing up your absorption of certain things based on those issues. So I'm not sure if I was ever not anemic technically in that 2-year period, but I didn't have symptoms for a while. And then the symptoms started coming back about 2 years later, and I really hadn't placed a priority on certain things as a vegan at that point.
Right.
So I sort of fell victim to some sort of, you'll be fine, don't worry about anything kind of thinking.
Right. I was actually, now that I'm thinking back, and I was really young. I was probably 9 or 10 years old. I was anemic as a kid, so
Really?
I've always wondered what other issues, like obviously with the Crohn's, it sort of makes sense, but other issues. I had what was called Brill's fever. Have you ever heard of Rocky Mountain spotted fever?
No.
Rocky Mountain spotted fever is a fever from a tick. Well, this was a fever from a flea, and I was very sick for I was probably sick for 4 weeks or so, and then for 3 months after, I had zero, all the signs you're talking about. And I remember even as a kid, the doctor talking about me being anemic then. Now it did affect me as far as my diet. I threw for a week or so, I threw up and went to the bathroom all the time. So I don't know if that's what it was, but I was just wondering, other than Crohn's, what really leads to anemia in an otherwise healthy person?
So blood loss can definitely lead to anemia.
Is it going back once again? Can it just simply be absorption issues in even a person that, just absorption issues?
Yeah.
We're not absorbing that iron that we need to be getting to.
Yeah, and it's not just, so deficiency in iron can cause anemia, but deficiency in B12 can cause anemia too.
Oh, okay.
And then there's something called sickle cell anemia that has to do with the shape of your blood cells. And there's probably at least 1 or 2 more types that I'm not recalling, but yeah, those are the primary causes. Iron deficiency anemia is by far the most common, the most well-known, and that you likely, for the average healthy person, you're probably not eating enough iron if you've got iron deficiency anemia. But if you have any history of digestive issues, you could be eating enough and just not absorbing and
Right.
using it correctly. And especially if you're a female, it is really important, depending on what your cycle is like. Some women lose a little bit of blood, some women somewhere in the middle, and some women lose a ton. So depending on that, you might need even above, they have different recommendations of how much iron you should be getting as a male versus a female in childbearing years. But if you're even on the heavier side, then you should even be above what that is.
That's interesting. You mentioned men and women. I don't know why, but I just always sort of assume that more women are anemic than men, or no?
I'd have to check that, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if that was accurate, especially because women during childbearing years are
Right.
especially sensitive to becoming anemic. It's kind of like an uphill battle. If you're a woman of a certain age and you are anemic, trying to become not anemic is okay, build up my red blood cells, build up my oxygen ability every month, and then lose some of it. Build it up again and then
Right.
lose some of it. And it's very frustrating uphill battle, kind of like the frog in the beaker kind
Right.
of math
Right.
question.
Once you found out, once you had that blood work done the second time after you were vegan and you were anemic, then what did it take? How long was your journey before you got that under control? And was it linear? Once you got it under control, have you been good ever since, or?
So that was a big struggle. It took a long time to figure that out. The doctor at the time prescribed me an iron supplement, but the one that she prescribed just did not work. It, if anything, messed up my digestion a little bit, which was like the opposite direction for me of where I knew I needed to be going. So at that point, I did try like some different superfood kind of things that were supposed to be really high in iron. Things like adding a bunch of like raw wheatgrass powder kind of stuff to my smoothies and things like that. But the issue with that is that there's a lot of variability there in any one batch or any one food. How much iron is actually in that thing
Right.
is kind of a guess. So you're really kind of gambling a little bit going that route. Now, I am a big advocate of green juices for vegans who have had a history of digestive issues and are having trouble absorbing certain minerals. By removing the fiber from the juice, it does help improve your absorption rate of your access to those minerals, because your body doesn't have to remove it from the fiber itself. The juicer does that for you. Smoothies, actually, you had mentioned earlier, like green smoothies, those are kind of a good middle ground. It does make things more available,
Right.
not as available as
Right.
juice, but more available. So I think that that's really good. I'm not saying, don't do those things, but especially if you're as anemic as I was, don't rely solely on those things. I did eventually find an actual iron supplement that worked for me, but it took a lot of trial and error, and so yeah, it took me several years still of last year, I believe it was in April of 2019, was the first test result that I got back that was no longer anemic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
you've been good well, you probably haven't done blood since then, or have
No,
you?
I have. I've been good since then.
Oh, wow.
I had blood work done in October and in January, because some hormonal
Right.
issues had developed.
Which is another subject. You got a lot of subjects you can talk about.
He's
Yeah,
had
definitely.
no health issues, and I've had every health issue.
Like I say, I don't know. I mean, I feel kind of bad. I don't want to sit over here and say, oh, poor me, I don't have any health issues. But no, but you have to admit, like, there's motivate. Like, we study, we do things that we're motivated to do. And it just makes common sense. Like, if you're suffering from something, you're going to be more motivated. Now, obviously, I could be a little less lazy and I could apply myself and learn some of these things. But, like I said, I haven't dealt with them.
Yeah.
I feel bad sometimes that a lot of people had to go through a lot of bad stuff to get us there, with just general information. But
Well, honestly, with some of what happens too when you're sick, like when I was really experiencing the worst part of my Crohn's situation, I was bedridden for 3 months.
Right.
So I had a lot of time on my hands to research
yeah.
those things. With the hormonal situation that came up last year, it was a very different situation where I was really busy and I wasn't feeling like I wasn't bedridden. So
Right.
I had to keep doing all of these things that were just regular life things, and I didn't take the time to research in sort of that deep dive up
Right.
front that I would have preferred to. I didn't have the time then. And don't get me wrong, I think even in 2015, like when I spent like 3 months in bed, that's a luxury. Like there's a lot of people that probably feel right now as bad as I felt then and still have to find a way to go do certain things during
that's
the
rough.
day. And I don't
Yeah.
know how I could have survived, especially with my mom. My mom did so much for me during that time.
Right.
I'm so thankful for her.
Well, you've recovered from a lot, or you're getting there. But you seem like you're healthy. I mean, you don't seem to have any ill effects from the various things you've had. I mean, I know there's maintenance. You have to keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, there's definitely maintenance. I also think that the reason why it sounds like I've had all of these health issues is really just that I had one core health issue
Right.
that went unaddressed for too long. And then when I did address it, great, but it took years to develop that core health issue, so it's taking years to resolve all of the after effects of
Right.
that. And that core health issue was the Crohn's situation. which I do think was closely tied to the year of antibiotics for my acne in my 20s, which was not a great idea.
Yeah. Okay, so tell us, what exactly did you do that cured your anemia?
So I sort of combined a few things together. I found a supplement. Essentially, as far as I know, pretty much any iron supplement should work, but what you need to make sure that you do is find an iron supplement that's not messing with your digestion. So whatever your unique microbiome situation is, there's probably a supplement, an iron supplement, vegan iron supplement out there that will work best for you. So find one that works for you, because you're going to have to take it every day for a while. And it could even be every day for like a year or something.
Let me stop you for a second. How did you, because you did work with a doctor, did your doctor recommend the supplement, or did you do trial and error, or how did you come across the supplement that was right for you?
Trial and error.
Okay.
They prescribed me an iron supplement, but that one did horrible things to my digestion. And if it's messing up your digestion, you're just not going to be willing to be compliant. Like, you're not going to take it every day because you're going to hate the thing. So find one that doesn't mess up your digestion too much.
Okay.
If you do need to counterbalance it a little bit, you could try adding a little magnesium, some extra magnesium in. But for the most part, there are some supplements out there. Pure Encapsulations is a pretty good brand. They're pretty reliable. I tried a lot of different supplements, so it was a lot of trial and error. The other thing that I did, though, was I started taking that every day. I would try to take it more around lunchtime. I didn't like taking it too close to bedtime, and I didn't like taking it first thing in the morning. You definitely don't want to take it near any coffee or tea, because that can reduce the absorption of the iron that you're taking. Yeah, it can interfere. If you want to consider taking caffeine, taking coffee or tea, even if it's not caffeinated, certain types of tea, even non-caffeinated, can still interfere with absorption. So also, if you have maybe a bedtime tea, don't take it around then either. But you could consider taking that out of your diet entirely for at least a little while to further help with the absorption. Okay. Everything that I did, the goal was to try to improve my absorption of iron, because I really needed to absorb a lot of it to be able to overcome the fact that I'm a woman of childbearing years. So so I did that. I would take it typically around lunchtime. I would try to have it with either a salad or a green juice, definitely something with some lemon in it, some citrus, and then I would try to have some fats with it. So if you have Brazil nuts every day, for example, time those with when you're taking your iron supplement or having green juice. Kind of time those things all together. And then the last thing that I want to mention, that I sort of referenced earlier in the video, but don't undervalue fat and protein. It's not that they need to be the bulk of your diet. It's not that you need anywhere near as much protein as what a lot of people think. It's not that it's hard to get enough protein as a vegan. It's really not. Just give it credit for what it is. You do need it. And if you're eating a lot of vegetables, then you're probably getting enough protein. You can add in some legumes. You can add in, you could consider adding in a protein powder. Depending on the type of protein powder, it can increase your IGF-1 levels, so I would be very careful with protein powders. But adding in some legumes for extra protein is also a really good idea, or some tofu if you're eating a cooked vegan diet. That can be really helpful. Depending on what you're doing, seitan wouldn't have worked for me because wheat was way too much of an issue, but just don't undervalue your protein and fat needs, because they are there, they do exist. And if you ignore them, you might not get enough. So but I am a high carb vegan. And don't be afraid, like if you're trying to do the high carb thing for weight loss, I personally have found that I can still maintain a very healthy weight or even lose weight at anywhere between 12%, 15%. I would say 20% would start to be pushing it. I definitely wouldn't go over 20% personally. Again, I know there's a lot of people that would disagree with that, but anywhere around that amount, you're still going to be fine. It doesn't have to be this strict 80-10-10 thing. It is helpful. My stomach's growling. We need to go eat. It is helpful to have a little bit more protein and fat. The protein as well, if you're not getting enough protein, that limits absorption of iron, so, and other minerals. So just don't undervalue those things.
Oh, cool. Well, that was another great discussion here. I just wanted to mention to you guys too that we're going to finally get that group, Raw Tropical Living, Raw Your Way, going here pretty soon, and we're going to talk about some of these subjects and hopefully get to know you people a little bit better. You know, in group, I don't want to say one-on-one, but more so, you know, it's a little bit more intimate on the Facebook group. I've never done anything with that group so far because you really have to be present. I mean, a Facebook group like left unattended or not attended enough just becomes like a nursery school. It's the same as having a bunch of toddlers. You've got the person over here with their guru and the person over there arguing about this one with his guru. You got people trying to sell stuff. So I just didn't really want to do much with that group until we both had the time to properly watch over it and kind of moderate it. But we are going to be doing some videos there. We're going to be sharing. And like I say, Amanda's going to have probably have her first video out this week. And as soon as she does, I'll drop a link in the description below. And you guys go hit her up because, like I say, she's got a lot more of the practical knowledge than me. I just do it. She knows about it. She's given me a real good education. So these videos and just talking with her is helping me to learn a little bit more about the science of this. So I appreciate that. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this one today. If you like it, please give us a thumbs up. And we'll see you again this week. Peace. Okay.